Connell, if I'm a single man, but recently out of a relationship or even out of a divorce, and I come to you, what's the first thing I should focus on before I even think about stepping into this dating marketplace today?
First thing you need to ask yourself is, am I reasonably ready? Am I getting back into the dating game because I know I want and need and I'm ready to find love, find the one? Or am I trying to distract myself from a bad breakup or something that didn't work out the way I wanted it to? I recently had a nice gentleman book a call with me and I could hear the pain in his voice. You know that sound of post breakup men, that heaviness in their voice. When you're going through a breakup or a breakup is still fresh, you can just feel the weight in the voice and the stress and the regret. And I've been there many times. Maybe you have as well. And I could hear in his voice he just wasn't ready for coaching. And I said, dude, are you sure you are ready for a dating coach? Because I don't want to use this as a distraction from you healing. So, first, you got to make sure you are relatively healed from the end of this relationship before you say, let's get out there and have some fun and make some connections.
What are some of those, whether you want to call them internal cues or lies that maybe a man is believing that he should be aware of that can kind of point that you're not ready, like this is a distraction. Like, what should he be kind of asking himself to reveal that?
He should take a moment and stop and ask himself, why am I getting back out there? Is it to forget about her? Is it to distract myself from the difficulty, the pain, the regret, the heartache? That is understandable and oh so human, but not the best time to be going out and dating. However, if he thinks about getting back out there, hopping on Hinge or talking to an attractive woman, if he feels a twinge of, ooh, I'm excited. I have nerves, but I'm excited. There's a positivity to it, some optimism, I hope. That is the right thing to listen to your heart about.
Yeah. As a coach, the guru, the expert in this space, you've dedicated your life to working with men to help them succeed in dating. Some guys would look at a quick hookup, a revenge date, a distraction as the path to getting over. Like, it's almost a necessary component. I think when I was younger, probably Frank in his 20s would have subscribed to that belief, probably would have recommended it to friends of mine, right? Buddies, like, what's the quickest way to get over one? You got to get underneath another one, right? It's kind of like, but it's true. We believed it, right? Why isn't that healthy?
It's not helpful because you're simply numbing a wound that hasn't healed yet. You need to put a band aid on that wound. You don't need to keep it open and hope that the person you're meeting doesn't see it. For the record, I have no problem with a fun fling. I have no problem with a fun hookup as long as you and she are honest with each other. You both know what you want. You're being genuine and you see that in each other. But if you are looking to put a band aid where your heart is, then, and that's understandable, that is understandable, but there are better ways to heal yourself than just distracting yourself by getting over somebody, by getting under somebody. That's a fun turn of phrase, but that doesn't make it healthy or true.
Do you think heartbreak is necessary for lasting success in relationships? Whether it's the high school sweetheart broke your heart, because you stood you up at homecoming, or you spent 5 years with a woman early in your 20s that you thought was going to be the one. At the time, I can look back at the 3 4 heartbreaks, like the real ones, right? Like the one that really like shook my world is like, you think it's the end of the world and you're never going to get out of it. But it's like every single one, like when I've done the work, like I can reflect back and be like, I've learned so much. Hopefully I grew and didn't take the same mistakes into the next one. So to me, in dealing with the men that I specifically work with, sometimes I tell these men, like, you got to go through some of these things. But for you, I'm just curious your kind of thoughts and around like, what role does heartbreak play?
I think, Elvis sang about Heartbreak Hotel, and it's a hotel we're all going to have to check into at some time or another, unless you're one of those rare people who marries their high school sweetheart. And if you're one of those people, God bless you. That certainly wasn't me, and it's not most men, I don't believe. And the reason why heartbreak is necessary for 90 something percent of men is because I think the best way to find your soulmate, to find an incredible partner, is to have some abundance, have some reasonable options, have two or three women you have dated, know what you like, know what you don't like, go through a breakup, not for the sake of doing it, but that's how you're going to find out here's the kind of person I really click with and connect with. And my girlfriend Jessamine and I, the reason why, knock on wood, we're so good together and will continue to be is because I made plenty of mistakes with other women. Women made mistakes with me, and I learned from those heartbreaks. So, no fun checking into Heartbreak Hotel, but when you check out, you are usually a better, stronger man. A famous quote from Hemingway: the world breaks all of us at times, but we are stronger at the broken places. I really believe that.
Yeah, I love that. I love that abundance thinking, right? I think we talked about it last time we had you on the show. It's like, dude, there's 8 billion people, right? You know, half of them or more than half of them are women. Like to think that the one woman that just broke her heart is going to be the last one. She probably wasn't even the right one for you. There is that woman that's out there. So we didn't get a lot into it last time, Connell, but I want to maybe unpack your story a little bit because I know it was heartbreak for you to a certain degree. I think that led you into the work that you're doing, right? So, you go by the real life Hitch. We kind of used that in the last title. I love the movie Hitch, right? You know, he had to go through this kind of identity transformation. His story was rooted in kind of a heartbreak. You know, I shared with you it was a big movie for me back in my 20s. So, yeah, can you kind of walk us through, your journey to becoming the expert, the coach, the guru that you are today, and yeah, we'll kind of tee it off from there.
I'm a object lesson in why you probably shouldn't settle down with the first woman who likes you because I came from such a low lonely place, feeling too shy, too skinny, too much of a nerd. Women just didn't like me. Women didn't go for me deeply into my 20s. And so the one woman who really liked me and was a real quality person, I said, well, it's either her or nobody. So I chose to marry her from a place of scarcity. She chose me from a place of her own urgency to maybe have a family because she was on a timeline. Bottom line is we both settled for each other. And 9 weeks after the wedding, she ended it. She quite vulnerably, bravely came and said, hey, we made a mistake. And at the time, I played the part of the wounded victim. Come on, baby, let's work it out. Let's do it. But that wasn't even how I felt. I didn't even want to marry her either, as wonderful as a person as she is. So this is a cautionary tale to, I'm not saying don't marry your first love if you find that, but it is good to have a few options because, man, if you go for the first person who if you think you have a scarcity of options and you settle for somebody, it's probably not going to last very long. In my case, 9 weeks. I joked at the time our wedding was over so fast that we fought for custody of the wedding cake. But I was joking through the tears. So my story was I came from a low place, and when that relationship ended, I later said, you know what? I want options. I don't want to feel like I have so few people in the world who want to be with me. Let me fix this. So even though that was painful, boy, it was that painful. It turned into something that happened for me rather than to me.
And how did that, I guess, catapult you? I'm sure it was a journey of you healing yourself. What was the catalyst though that took you? Journalist is your background, right? Like a journalist background to so the transition from your own healing, your own recovery, growing in the confidence that maybe you didn't have before, experiencing this. Like, what was that catalyst of like now I need to go help other men?
The catalyst was once I started to work with some really good coaches, both dating coaches and non dating coaches, who just helped me with confidence and just developing myself as a man. I realized, you know what? You don't have to be some kind of weird pickup artist guy to go out and have a great dating life. You don't have to be some toxically masculine, fake bullshit alpha male, false alpha male. You can do this. By this, I mean date, find love, have success by being really big hearted. And you can learn about dating in a way that improves you as a man while also making the lives of the women you meet better. So once I realized, hey, this is actually pretty awesome. Every woman I approach, it's like a metaphor for life. I approach women, try to do it with authenticity and kindness and being my best self with good intentions. That's the way I try to approach life. And I thought, damn, this is a pretty cool metaphor for how to grow as a man and give back to some wonderful women and eventually the one woman you're going to share your life with. Once I figured out sort of how to teach it and how powerful this was, I said, I got to put this in a bottle and teach it because this is great. You can be a really attractive, awesomely attractive, dateable guy, but still be a nice guy, still be a good man.
What was the experiential difference that you saw, witnessed, went through when you got out of that scarcity thinking, right? You know, you mentioned the young Connell pre the first marriage, very scarce in his thinking, you know, struggling confidence, not a lot of success. Women think I'm weird, I'm scrawny, I'm weak. So it's like, I got to find this one. Now you've, you know, recreated yourself and have had success with this abundance thinking, both in the dating world, but then also, I'm assuming that way of thinking has transcended just dating for you, and it probably applies to your other social lives, your work, in other endeavors, interests that you have. So, what's been the experiential difference for you getting out of that scarcity thinking into more abundance life?
The experiential difference, so we've got the obvious experiential benefit, which was women all of a sudden were really liking me, a lot more women than I ever thought. I was able to approach a really cute girl once at a rooftop bar, and she was wearing this silver dress. She looked like Jennifer Beals from the movie Flashdance, which was my crush at the time. I started puberty while watching Flashdance, basically. So I walked up to this woman and I was really nervous. And I took the advice of my coach. He said, "Don't do a pickup line, do the anti pickup line. Say exactly how you're feeling." And I walked up and said, "Hey, excuse me, I'm actually really shy and nervous, but I want to meet you." And she looked at me and said, "Yeah, right. You're shy." "Yeah, right. Hi, I'm Amy." She was into it. And I realized, whoa, by being vulnerable, by being genuine, all of a sudden I was projecting this more aligned, congruent version of myself that came off as confident. She thought it was a line. I was scared shitless. So the experience in the field was great for that reason. But then what I started noticing, I think to the point of your question, Frank, is that I all of a sudden those work meetings became less stressful. When I had to go ask my boss for a raise, I had a bit more confidence. When I was with my family, I could notice myself socially noticing how people were feeling and helping different people chime in and connect. And so I noticed all these really cool see the matrix moments. When you get really good at dating and communicating with people, a nice benefit is it can holistically just make you overall feel more confident, more present, and enrich your life in ways that aren't just about finding love.
I love that, man. Looking behind you, I can obviously see the bookshelves, many classics there. You know, you've spoken of investing in yourself and coaching in the dating world, and it sounds like you've had coaching in many areas of your life. I'm assuming what you've done is you've taken these insights, these lessons from the greats, both within the book and from the people that you've worked with, and you condense this into a framework within that you would describe as your own. Right, you have a book. I'm sure you have protocols or frameworks in which you coach your guys. How would you describe in a handful of sentences your coaching approach to dating?
Oh, I'll give you one sentence. Go out, take courageous, authentic action with respect for women. That's it. Take those romantic risks, but do it with genuineness and noticing how she's feeling as best you can. It really comes down to that. It comes down to taking romantic risks. And that is very scary for many men to do because rejection can hurt, rejection can sting. And we don't want to, the royal we men, we don't want to come off as weird or creepy or bother people or bother women. And I say there's nothing creepy, there's nothing weird about trying to give a woman a rom-com movie moment, saying something flirtatious, something to make her day better or to try to. So in a few sentences, that was more than a few, but in a few sentences or one sentence, I just say, hey, be authentic, take some courageous risks, like I did with that Jennifer Beals lookalike. Even though I could hear my heart pounding through my chest that moment, and take those risks because, as you know, the cliche goes, fortune favors the bold.
I think you capped it with the interest of the woman, or it's getting yourself out of this equation, and you're taking these risks for her good, for her sake. What internal shift has to take place in a guy in order to be able to successfully do that, right? Because every single guy is out there looking for a partner, a date for himself. So it's almost innate that what we're doing is for us, but we have to be able to put her first. So what shift has to occur within us to be able to do that?
Great question. The biggest shift, I think there's two big shifts. One is about your own identity and worth, and the other is about how you are communicating with her. So I'll take them one at a time. The first shift is you have to begin to look inside of your soul and say, I am worth something. I have value to people and I am enough. I'm enough. I'm not George Clooney. I'm not Brad Pitt, but I'm a fucking awesome dude. I'm a dad. I'm a brother. I'm a smart software engineer. I'm a podcaster. I'm whatever I am. Boy, I'm a great catch for lots of women. So it starts with that sense of personal significance. It's got to be there. Or if it's not there, we need to build it up. That's one shift. The second shift we have to think about is instead of thinking, what can I get from her as I talk to this attractive woman at the bar or say hi to her at the coffee shop, instead of how do I get what I want, make it how can I make her day or night a little bit better? How can I make her smile or at least try to? And that shifts our minds away from getting what I want to being generous, being somebody who's trying to make her day or night better. And that paradoxically makes it more likely the quote unquote approach will go well. But even if it doesn't go well, you're coming from a place of contribution as opposed to ego gratification. And that feels better to women and it feels so much better to a man.
Yeah, I love both of those. The first one, I think the personal significance is where we can really zero in here. I teed the episode up with asking you the question: the guy that's kind of gone through a big heartbreak, coming out of a long-term committed relationship. Maybe he's made some mistakes in his actions, and he's now lost his wife, the woman that he thought he was going to have forever. So speaking to that guy, the one that is dealing with the heartbreak from a long-term relationship, or has lost the potential future that he saw with the family, kind of two different scenarios but still under the same umbrella. He feels insignificant because he effed up, right? To a certain degree. So what are the steps that guy takes? Because you said, if you don't have it, we got to begin to build it up. So how does a guy that has failed in his previous relationship meaningfully, right? Maybe even cost him a portion of his net worth. How does that guy begin to build the confidence back up that he can actually be of significance to the next woman?
He's got to he's got to write a story, an empowering story for himself, a narrative about his ability to find love and his worth to women. That story needs to be empowering and positive. It can't be something like, relationships suck. I'm heartbroken and I'm worth half my money. Dating's going to effing suck. I mean, he can write that story, but it's going to make it harder for him to take action. It's going to make him less attractive to women. He needs a better story. That's a horror story. He needs an empowering story. Something like, you know what? Better to have loved and lost. As painful as this is, I'm going to turn my broken relationship, my ended relationship, into something that happened for me rather than to me. There's a great book. I'll bet you know it. Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl. Incredible book, one of the greatest books of all time. He basically said we need to go through life taking trauma and turning it into something that helps us to grow. And so instead of, I guess the question to ask yourself post breakup, pre dating is, okay, this hurts, it sucks, I'm in pain, but how is this going to be something that will happen for me rather than to me? And once you start reframing that in a way that's positive and empowering, you can start telling yourself a better story like, well, I'm going to find somebody who's even better for me than she was. Maybe she wasn't the one for the long term. And I'm still a dad, or I'm still friends with her, or even if we're not, okay, I'm going to learn. I'm not going to be bitter about that in time. So we want to write that story in a way that makes us optimistic and hopeful and understand that we are not defined by our past relationships. We're defined by the story we tell ourselves every day.
What role do you see, we're two marketers, business guys here, right? But like a rebranding of your identity or image playing that, right? You watch the movies. I talked about Hitch to you, right? A big part of Will Smith's work with Kevin James was like the recreation of your image. There's the other movie out there. I think it's Gosling and Steve Carell. Same thing, right? There's this recreation of the brand, of the image and identity as the man that you are. So in this recrafting of a narrative, rewriting of a story, what role does a rebranding or reimagining of our identity play in that?
It plays a huge role because one of the most powerful forces in human psychology is the desire to be aligned with, consistent with who we feel our identity is, and to take action from that place. So, my advice to go out and take courageous, authentic risks, that's good advice. So, we need an identity that allows us to do that. An identity that says, I'm a man of action, I'm worth something, I'm amazing, I'm incredible. And here's a little tip for your listener to try to get in touch with that identity. Beautiful thing is, you don't have to create something out of whole cloth. That identity is already inside of you. Here's what you can do. Ask yourself right now, what are two or three areas of your life where, when you're engaged in these areas, I call them vehicles, you feel amazing, confident, in the zone, a 10 out of 10, at least at times. Maybe it's when you're with certain friends. Maybe it's when you're playing guitar on the stage. Maybe it's when you're with your family. Maybe it's when you're playing with your little kids if you're a single dad. Maybe it's at the gym, running a marathon, whatever it is. Go to two or three areas and ask yourself, what are those areas? And look at those two areas and ask yourself, okay, how do I describe myself in those areas? How do I feel? You're probably going to say things like confident, present, in the zone, alive, authentic, my best self. That is the identity we want to build, that woman's going to want to meet on a first date. She wants to meet what I call that higher self, that core, true, best you. And so the beautiful thing is, I don't want every guy to create some identity that sounds like everybody else. That's what the pickup guys did 18 years ago. That was so stupid, or, now looks ridiculous. I want you to say, hey, who is my true core identity? And the best way to find that is ask yourself, who am I in the best, happiest moments of my life? And that is essentially an imprint, a profile of who that higher self is.
I love that, man. There's that saying, I think, in the personal development world, it's, you want to stack some wins. You want to, confidence is nothing more than stackable proof of evidence that you are who you say you are. And I think, in my experience, and I'm sure most of the listeners, and I'm curious if you agree, it's like sometimes these heartbreaks, these setbacks, whether it happens in dating or in another area of life, usually comes after we've stopped doing the things that we've enjoyed, right? It's like, if a man were to actually ask himself those questions, he would probably say, it's been a long time since I've done many of these things, right? And it probably stopped doing them prior to things spiraling out of control, whether it was in the relationship or in work life or in your health or fitness. So it's almost like this re-emergence back to the person that you already are. Like, and we have to remind ourselves. And I think that's where coaching, work, podcasting, books, like, nothing is new, but it's this constant reminder, right? It's like humans need to be reminded more than they need to be taught. We need to be reminded of who we are, to have that confidence, so we can then share that with others.
Absolutely. And the beautiful thing about being reminded of who you are, your true best core identity, at least one of them, because we have multiple selves. Walt Whitman has a famous quote, I contain multitudes. And I really believe that, because there's, the gentleman listening to this, there's you, the son, the friend, the worker, the software engineer, the single dad, the brother, the musician. There's different sides of you. And there's a new side of you, not new, but there's a sleeping side perhaps that we can wake up, which is the version of you who is confident in himself romantically. He knows his worth. He knows that plenty of women are going to like his type. And so it's about understanding that's not a new identity. It's actually one that might be slumbering. I know mine was slumbering for 35 years, but he's in there. We just got to wake him up and teach him a few little flirting moves, and then he's going to be great.
What role does image, dress, attire, I've had a handful, I think one or two podcasts specifically on just male fashion. Is it something you coach and counsel guys on? Right, it's like your image, your attire is it's going to be the first representation, that first reaction, that first thought within 3 seconds of like seeing a person. So how deep into dress presentation do you go, and what role does it play once again in this kind of identity reimagining of our new
There's a
self?
men's health poll that I quoted in my book. 34%, only 34% of women put a man's physical looks in her top five things that she wants. But 89% of women said the way a man dresses and his style is in her top five. And for many, it's number one. So looks, good looks, it's a nice bonus if you have them, overrated. Your look, your style, your haircut, your being well groomed, women notice all those little things. So absolutely, Your style is something that literally every single man can get handled. He just has to make some simple style decisions. He needs clothes that fit well. They don't have to be tailored for him, but they should look tailored or at least fit his body type. He should give himself a little haircut that looks intentional. If he's got hair, if he doesn't, make that an intentional look. There's an old line: baldness is a condition, shaving your head is a style choice. So he can make a style choice with his hair, his clothes, and women aren't looking at labels. They're not worried about how much you spend. What they do is they look you over and say, "Oh, does this guy take care of his style? Okay, good. That means he can take care of me." So yeah, style is important. It also just makes you feel your more confident self as well.
Yeah, I think I read that in a GQ magazine when I was 19, showing my age here a little bit, but it stood out to me, and it's like it's been such an important part of how I present myself. But it was like never show up on a first date or any date like with crusty shoes or like shoes that were beat up, because a woman will see that as a sign of, if he's not taking care of that, he's not going to take care of me. Like she may not even consciously think it. It's like it's probably more innate, right? It's just these subtle little things, but presentation, that it's not flashy. Like I'm, black t-shirt and jeans guy, but it's like it fits me, it fits my look. I'm hats type of guy.
People extrapolate, women extrapolate. So they say, oh, dirty fingernails, probably hasn't showered in 3 days, probably hasn't paid his taxes in 5 years, probably his life's a mess. I can't be with a guy whose life's a mess. So that's why these little things make a big difference.
I want to pivot, talk about single fathers. I know you're not cat dad. Shout out, represent over there. Got Bentley over here. He's been with me 285 episodes. Lays right next to
Bentley had
me.
a great name.
To the dads out there, what is the dating advice to single fathers? Like, how do they approach it differently, or is it just the same?
Well, same core essentials need to be there. When I say core essentials, it starts with buying into your authentic worth. Know that you need a story that makes you feel good about who you are. So beware of the story that says, oh, you're a single dad, baggage. Women aren't going to want some guy with kids. That's bullshit. There might be some women out there who don't want that. Plenty of women think it's amazing to be dating a single dad, or at least they're open to it. They don't judge it in any way. My feeling is that being a parent, that's the most important job on the planet. And women love a man with a cool job. So if you're a single dad, good on you. Lean into it, play it up. The guy who's my personal trainer, Zach, he's a single dad. He's also a client of mine out in the town right now, and he's getting a lot of great matches, starting to get dates for the first time. He's dating for the first time since his marriage ended, and we have fun with it. We have some funny little prompts. You can write a prompt on your Hinge that might say something like, I hope you like, DILFs, and then parentheses, it's dad I'd like to have fun with. And you go, oh, what do you think I meant? So you can have fun with it. Bottom line is, if you're a single dad, don't think of it as a vice or a negative. Quite the opposite. It's a virtue. It's a strength. It's part of the overall value proposition you bring to the dating table. So there's nothing to worry about.
Where does humor rank? Not just with dads, but with men in general. You mentioned, 89% of women are going to look at a men's dress, his style. Many of them will rank the care for himself right at the top, one, two. Humor's got to be right up there at the top as well. Where does that slide in the importance of what a female's looking? And can everybody express a certain degree of humor, or like, are you funny or you're not?
What's great about humor is that it's very important to lots of women, but not all. Maybe not even a majority. It's kind of like looks. It's a nice bonus, but it's not like you don't have to be Chris Rock funny on a date. Here's what you can do though. You can learn some 2 or 3 core basic humor fundamentals. You can learn the art of sarcasm and irony. She's running late for the date. She's 15 minutes late. She gets there and says, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I've been running late. It's hard to find parking." You might say, "Oh, well, parking is so easy in Chicago. That's never been a problem for anybody." You can use little basics like that. You can use hyperbole. Hyperbole is a nice thing that any guy can learn. Oh my God, this burger tastes better than the manna from heaven. You could say things like that. It's fairly easy to learn. And a really simple way to be funny on a date, to be playful and humorous, it's not even about humor. It's more that women want playfulness. everybody can be playful. Not everybody's witty and amazingly witty, but every guy can have a thumb wrestling contest on a date, or staring contest, or play two truths and a lie right then and there. It doesn't have to be funny. Humor is a nice bonus, but women are looking more for light, playful conversation as opposed to Mr. Stand-up comedian witty. So you can learn it, but what almost every woman wants, play, not necessarily hilarious.
Yeah, that was one of the big things, Connell, that in our last conversation, stood out to me and had me thinking after the talk, because I don't think play just applies to dating. I think it applies to relationship success, long term relationship success. I'm a year plus into mine, and it's like we have the greatest time, but it's like there's so much play embedded in our relationship, like playing in the car. Like, dude, we played punch buggy. Like what 41-year-old man is like punching his girlfriend in the leg when they're driving down the street? It's like I am, but you know what? Like we both love it. We see punch buggies everywhere now. But there's just this playful component to our relationship that I think her and I both agree. It's like it's one of the rocks. Like it's one of the foundations of I think why we enjoy each other so much. So I think the play obviously is applicable to the dating, but you got to carry that play over into the relationship is as well. And I think a certain degree that playfulness is a sign of wit. And sometimes the wit. I remember I think it was Professor Scott Galloway described wit and humor almost as a cue or sign of intelligence. Like somebody that can think on their feet sharply and respond is a cue of intelligence. And like that is assuming a sign of attractiveness to most women. Like you don't have to be Elon Smart, genius IQ, but you gotta have some wit tied to intelligence.
Yeah, so, something I learned from so I've been taking improv comedy lessons and classes for a decade. And there was something I learned in improv that is a good way to get funnier fast. In improv, there's a concept called yes and. You say yes to a concept in an improv scene so that we can build a scene out of nothing. And when I started working on my dating life, I started experimenting with this on dates. And I would literally say yes to a woman when she asked me something, even if the answer wasn't literally true. So for example, I remember a first date I had where she said to me, "Oh, hey, nice to meet you." We were settling in. And this was back when Match.com was popular. Not as popular now, but she said, "Oh, so am I like your fourth or fifth match date this week?" Now, the truthful answer would have been, "Oh, no, no, you're like my first date in a month." But that's not always funny, the truth. Instead, I decided to say yes and. So I said, "Oh, yeah, you're my fifth date today. And I got three more coming tonight. And so if you could just scoot over, she's going to be here soon. But you're in the lead, I promise." So what I did there, I didn't do anything terribly witty per se. All I did is I used a simple concept. She said, I said yes instead of no, and I added to it. Another date, super quick, similar anecdote. Um, I yawned once on a date because I was just tired. And she said, "Oh, am I boring you?" And I said, "Yeah. Oh my God, that story you told about shoe shopping, I almost dozed off. If you can try to pick this up, that'd be great." It's playful. I'm not literally telling her she's boring. And she looked at me like, "Oh, you were bad." But it was that look of attraction. So practice the concept of literally saying yes and to those kinds of questions on a date. Just make sure that she knows you're kidding. We don't want it to be confused with you telling her she's boring. It's a joke. We're pulling her pigtails, proverbially. We're flirting.
I love that, man. Guys, sign up for improv because I don't know how else you learn that other than practicing, and practicing in the real world can get you in not trouble, but it could make you look a little foolish in certain areas. So you want to have some background
It'll make you quick on your
practice.
feet. And the
Yeah.
nice thing about texting and online dating is you can use these concepts. You have a little bit more time to think about them. I can go, okay, she's asking me a question. How many women am I talking to here on Hinge? 100, but you're in my top 10. You have time to think about something fun and playful. But you're right, it does take practice.
How quickly are you looking with the online dating to get off the text? Is it a red flag if a woman only wants to text you for like a week or too long? Or like how quickly are you like, hey, let's get off this app. Let's at least engage text wise. Or are you trying to get to a phone, or are you trying to get in person? Like, is there a protocol in time with? Obviously, each case is going to be somewhat dependent, but I'm sure there's going to be a point where if she's avoiding even moving off of an app, it's probably going to be a red flag. So what do we kind of look for?
Read the room. By read the texting room, did she say, "Oh my god, it's great to match with you," with 7 heart eye emojis? That's you can hop off the app pretty quickly with her because she's excited to meet you. If it's a and that's but that's a little bit more unusual. What's more normal is nice, simple rapport building messages back and forth. And then you want to here's a good rule of thumb. Unless you get those giant emojis and a lot of enthusiasm, which does happen, you can get that woman off the app quickly and set up a date or at least set up a phone date. But if you don't get that, my rule of thumb is once 2 topics and a total of 12 messages have been sent back and forth, that's when you say, "Hey, you know what? It'd be nice to get to know you a little bit off the app. What's your number? Or let's meet up for coffee." And the worst case scenario is she's going to say, "Hey, I'm not ready yet. I need a little more time." But at least you're showing that you're leading the dance. So that's a good rule of thumb. But basically, I like to look and notice how she's responding and vibing with me. And so I'll ask her out or ask her to get off the app sooner than later, depending on what the room is telling me. But general rule of thumb, a dozen total messages, 2 topics. Women don't want a pen pal, they want a date.
Yeah, that's a perfect answer. Stories. We talked about a few of the stories and narratives that maybe keep guys, stuck. I'm unworthy. Nobody will ever love me again. I'm a single father. So that's gonna make challenges for me. What are some of the other, top 2, 3 stories and narratives that you see really crippling guys out there?
I think the first one is about themselves, as discussed, right? I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy. The very first night I ever went out to approach women was July 2009. And before I went into that rooftop bar to talk to women, I first had to go into the men's room. I had a panic attack. I had hyperventilated and started to dry heave because I was so afraid I was going to find out I was going to get rejected by women. And then I approached one girl and I realized, oh my God, there was nothing to fear. No big deal. She wasn't into me, but she didn't, call the cops either. She just didn't want to date me. So that internal thing is the first thing. The other thing I think is important to notice, and this is more for meeting women in real life, because I still believe that the best way to meet somebody is to good old fashioned in real life conversation where you actually talk to them like humans used to do before Tinder was invented. And a thing that gets in the way, pushes back against men is this idea that, oh, it's weird or wrong to talk to a woman in public. Don't hit on them, don't creep on them, don't catcall. I agree with those things. Don't catcall, don't creep on them, don't objectify them. But paying a woman a sincere G-rated compliment, it's a great way to break the ice. Or asking her a nice, light question in a public venue. You're at the coffee shop tomorrow. There's an attractive woman next to you as you're both waiting for your $12 Starbucks. You might say, "Hey, let me ask you a question. Are you thinking iced coffee or hot coffee? What's your coffee vibe? I'm trying to decide." What woman's going to reject that, at least as a conversational icebreaker? There's nothing to reject there. So I think that the biggest thing that pushes back against men once they do have confidence in themselves is feeling like, oh, this is weird or wrong to talk to a woman. We've only been doing it for 200,000 years. It's okay. You're allowed to go talk to a woman. It's what Homo sapiens do.
I'm a believer that I think that's going to become even more important just with where the world is going, which, kind of sparked me to ask you. I didn't think I was going to get into the topic with you, but AI and robots. What are your thoughts as, a coach, expert, guru, kind of in the dating space? Like, what role is AI already playing in these apps? What are some red flags that maybe we should look for? Is it a good thing? Do you see it as a bad thing? Just kind of curious
Okay.
your thoughts on
Hold on.
AI.
Let me ask Chat GPT. Hey, Chat GPT, Frank wants me. Oh, sorry. Um,
There's a sign of that wit right there.
Here, thank you,
So
thank you. Here is a cautionary tale. Be careful. I have a girlfriend and we're very happy together, but I still do quote unquote video dates for work. I have a weird job. She knows this. So I hop on a video date a couple months ago with a woman from Tinder, quote unquote woman, and I get on the video chat with her and I just feel like there's something off here. What's going on? She looks like a human, she looks like a woman, but there's something off. And I realized I'm looking at an AI, basically a live deep fake. This was not a real human. I could tell it's that uncanny valley. I was deep in uncanny valley. So that's where we're sadly need to be aware of that we need to watch out for things like that. So that's why meeting people in person, I think, is is going to come back in such a big way now more than ever, because you can't really trust so much of what you see online anymore. Maybe not a deep fake digital woman, but AI enhanced photos where he or she doesn't look anything like the photos. Um, and so I think where we're going is to a pretty um, dark place, not dark, but a pretty disempowering place. We're going to have to be so careful that we're actually meeting the person who we're talking to. So that's why I'm a big fan of limiting the amount of texting and online dating we do, and getting back to meeting people in real life through good old fashioned approaching, but also just having fun hobbies, going out and doing things out in the world that involve other people. That's the best way to meet somebody, I think.
No, I agree. And I don't think it's, fear mongering or wrong to say that it could lead to some dark places. It already has. That's a part of the world that I'm somewhat exposed to is men that are so secluded in these virtual fantasy driven worlds that for many of them, there's a comfort that comes with avoiding all human interaction and just staying plugged in. And I do think that's dark. And it can only lead to darker and darker things. So, not to take this conversation down there, but no, I would agree. That's wild, man. That I mean, obviously your girl knows the work that you do, so she's it's important. I can understand where like doing the virtual dating stuff, helps you in all of that. What has being a dating coach uh, done for you in your relationships?
Ooh, great question. No one's ever asked me that exactly the way you just asked it. It In my relationships, really helped me to have a lot of empathy for women, because first, when I got into this world, I was focused on my problems and all the dating issues that I've already talked about, feeling lacking in confidence, lacking in options. And the better coaches I had along the way helped me to say, hey, wait a minute, why don't we just get away from that pickup artist thing and tactics, too many tactics, making it too much about seduction and getting to sex? Why don't you actually talk to a woman and really get to know her and have empathy for what she's feeling? So being a dating coach helped me, before I ever met my girlfriend, really helped me to reconnect with the importance, as cheesy as it sounds, the importance of just kindness and empathy and noticing how people are feeling with you, which is actually good game, quote unquote, because if you can sense what a person's feeling, you can make adjustments and have the date go better. But it's also just a higher place of coming at this. I remember I went to a pickup seminar once, and the pickup dude said, oh, here's what you do if you touch a woman, she doesn't like it. Use a statement of empathy so she'll feel like you are aware of how she's feeling. And I was like, a statement of empathy? That's like something Ted Bundy used to get women into his car, probably. It sounded like a sociopath the way he said it. How about actual empathy? How about actual kindness and noticing how people are feeling? And so it's, in a way, you almost have to deal with your own stuff and shit first before you can create enough space to notice how women are feeling. But to answer your question, it's impacted my relationships by really helping me dial in on how is that woman feeling and how's she feeling about me, because I want her to feel good with me.
Which takes us back. I mean, you made the comment. We've been doing this for 200,000 years. Empathy is probably somewhere in that evolutionary journey. It's like we had to begin to understand how the things that we did made the other people in our tribe feel. If not, we're gonna get kicked out of the tribe and eaten by the saber-toothed tiger. So I think there's something kind of innate in that empathy, and yeah, it's crazy. Like an empathy statement. It's like it's such a tactic, right? Colin, man, I've loved this again, Brian. Like,
Thank
dude,
you.
I just
You're great. These are great questions. You're a great
I
interviewer.
appreciate
I'm
that,
not
man.
surprised, but
We asked you last episode, the Superman life question was the one that we ask every guest at the end. I don't want to repeat that with a second time guest here. Had it been 6 months or a year, maybe it'd be a different response. So as we wrap this up, obviously, guys, go check out episode 284. We'll link that down there. If you didn't listen to the first episode, we go deep into the nice guy stuff, some first date tactics, some mindset, some identity things that we went a little bit deeper on today. Obviously, check out his book, Connell's podcast, links, all that plugged down in the show notes below. Datingtransformation.com. We'll have all of his information. As we wrap it up, if I gave you a microphone and you could speak to the millions of single men that are out there, you got one sentence, one statement to help set them up for success in the dating world, to all the single guys out there. Drive us home today with that one message to those guys.
Give her the gift of a rom-com movie moment. Walk up to a woman and from a generous place, say something that you think might make her smile. And here's a comment to have in your back pocket. This was one of the best approaches I ever did. You should have seen the way this woman's face lit up when I said this to her. Excuse me, miss. I just saw you. I'm in a great mood and I had to share it with somebody. How are you? And she looked at me like I was the most attractive man in the world. I then proceeded to do a bunch of lame pickup artist bullshit and blew it up. But that moment of sincerity and giving, that's what women want. So that's a great way. Go make a woman's day. Go offer her a little glimpse of your best shining light. You might be surprised how well it works, but just how good it feels too.
Guys, we want to hear from you. If you take action on any of these things, reach out to Connell, connect with him on Instagram, plug something in your story, tag me, we'll reshare it, or send me a direct message. But we gave you guys a lot here in these last 2 episodes. Take action on it. Dude, I've loved this, man. Excited to continue the relationship. But guys, check out Connell, reach out, get his book. And if you're struggling with women, get some coaching. But Connell, brother, I appreciate you, man. We'll talk soon.
Thank you for what you do. This podcast was rocks, and I'm humbled to be on. Thank you.
Appreciate you, brother. We'll talk soon, man. All right, guys. Take care. We'll see you next week. Love you. Bye.